I was halfway down the frozen food aisle when I felt a soft tap on my shoulder. I turned, assuming someone needed help finding oat milk or something simple like that. Instead, a stranger smiled politely and said, "Your daughter is beautiful." I blinked, confused. "I don't have a daughter," I replied. Her smile faltered. Her brows knit together as she glanced over my shoulder. Her voice lowered. "She's been following you since the park," she said. "I thought she was yours." My stomach dropped. I slowly turned, and that's when I saw her. A little girl, no older than 5, with soft brown curls pulled back by a faded scrunchie. She wore a slightly oversized purple sweatshirt with a unicorn on it. In one hand, she clutched a stuffed bunny by its ears. She stood just a few feet away, eyes wide. "Can we go home now, Mommy?" she asked softly. I froze. She stepped closer and reached for my hand. I didn't move. I looked back at the woman. She, too, was clearly unsettled. "She's been behind you for a while," the woman repeated. "Since the park." I was sitting on a bench. I noticed her. "I really thought she was with you." Still stunned, I turned back toward the little girl. She was now standing directly beside me, her tiny hand gently holding mine like it belonged there. "I think you're mistaken," I said quietly. "I'm not your mom." Her grip didn't loosen. She nodded, like she heard me, but didn't accept it. "Come on," she said, "let's go home." My heart pounded. Other shoppers were starting to take notice. I could feel their eyes. I knelt to her level. "What's your name?" I asked. She didn't answer. "Do you know where your mom is? Or your dad?" Nothing. She just stared, waiting. The woman behind me shifted awkwardly. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to." "No, thank you," I interrupted. "You did the right thing." She nodded and quickly disappeared down another aisle. Turning back to the girl, I tried again. "Where are your parents?" "You are," she whispered. Her voice was calm. Too calm. I slowly reached for my phone, trying not to startle her. I called the store's front desk and asked for security, keeping my voice low. "She says I'm her mom," I explained, "but I've never seen her before." She was still holding my hand. That Sunday had started out so simple. I had a short to-do list and barely enough energy to tackle it. My mom, Sharon, had asked me to grab a few things from the store. I figured I'd knock it out before lunch. I told her I'd stop by later with chicken, apples, and her favorite dark chocolate. She always insisted on Venmoing me back the exact amount, down to the penny. She'd had hip surgery 5 weeks ago, and I'd been helping her since. Groceries, cleaning, physical therapy rides, whatever she needed. She hated being taken care of even more than I enjoyed doing it. But I didn't do it to be noble. I did it because she's my mom. She raised me alone after my dad walked out when I was 8. She was tough, but she never gave up on us. Even when she had nothing, she kept pushing forward. So yeah, I owed her at least 100 grocery runs. I parked in front of the store, slid my keys into my coat pocket, and grabbed my reusable bags. The lot was half empty, quiet between early churchgoers and the afternoon rush. Inside, the air smelled like lemons and fresh bread. I remember that vividly now, which is strange. I passed through the produce section, checking my phone for my mom's updated list. Eggs and almond milk had been added at the last minute. I wasn't in a bad mood, or a great one, just tired. I'd been working long hours from home as a freelance web designer, mostly helping small businesses. My latest client had been messaging at weird times, obsessing over color schemes. I hadn't had a full day off in weeks, and even when I wasn't working, I was on standby for my mom. Not complaining, just stating facts. I'd gotten used to the solitude. I lived in a quiet suburb, 10 minutes from mom. No husband, no kids, no roommates. A small house, but peaceful, predictable. Motherhood was never part of the plan. Not because I disliked kids. I liked them fine, in short doses. But the idea of parenting never pulled at me the way it did some of my friends. My only family was mom and my sister, Courtney. At least, it had been. Courtney had been gone 6 years. I didn't talk about her much anymore. Not because I didn't care, but because it still hurt. She was 2 years older. Wild, complicated, brilliant, but self-destructive. We were close as children. But as we got older, we drifted. She made choices I didn't understand. Got involved in things she couldn't handle. When the overdose happened, I wasn't shocked. And that's the worst part. It wasn't surprising. There was no closure, just silence, just absence. So now it was just me, my mom, a grocery run, and this little girl who had somehow ended up holding my hand. I moved quickly through the aisles. Apples, check. Eggs, check. At the rotisserie stand, I grabbed a hot chicken, wrapped it in another bag, and headed toward the dairy section. Just as I turned, I spotted something in the corner of my eye. A little girl standing near the store entrance. She was alone. It barely registered. Kids wander all the time. I assumed she was with someone nearby and kept walking. I reached the freezer section and grabbed Mom's almond milk, the last item on my list. My phone buzzed. Another message from Mom. Everything good? I smiled and typed, almost done. She hated feeling like a burden. She always asked if I minded. Then I felt it. A soft tap on my shoulder. I turned, and a woman I'd never seen smiled and said, "Your daughter is beautiful." I blinked. "I don't have a daughter," I replied. Her expression changed instantly. "She's been following you since the park." My stomach turned. I slowly turned, and there she was again. The same girl, closer this time, with big brown eyes. "Can we go home now, Mommy?" Her hand was already in mine. She wasn't crying. She wasn't afraid. She looked at me like she belonged. I crouched and asked her name. No answer. "Do you know where your parents are?" Still nothing. She just stared, as if waiting for me to stop asking and start understanding. "My name's Natalie," I said softly. "What's yours?" Silence. "How old are you? Do you know where you live?" Nothing. Finally, she whispered, "Ellie. That's a beautiful name. Ellie, are you lost?" She shook her head. "Are you alone?" Another shake. "Did someone bring you?" She nodded. "Who brought you?" "You did." My chest tightened. She wasn't pretending. She believed it. I tried to gently pull my hand away, but she held it, calm and steady. I walked us toward the customer service counter and explained the situation. She says I'm her mother. I've never seen her before. Someone said she's been following me since the park. The manager called security. A young man named Kyle met us and invited me to step into the office. Inside, Ellie sat beside me, ignoring the juice box he offered. She leaned against my arm as Kyle pulled up surveillance footage. In every frame since I'd entered the store, she was there. Always just a few steps behind me, watching, never wandering, never touching anything. 10 minutes later, 2 officers arrived. I explained everything. Ellie was beside me, coloring quietly. The female officer knelt beside her. "Hi, Ellie. Can you tell me where you live?" "Your mommy's name?" Ellie looked up, pointed at me, and said, "She's right here." The officer turned to me. "Do you know this child? Neighbor? Relative?" I shook my head. "I've never seen her before. I live alone. I don't have kids." They took my ID, photographed Ellie for the report, checked local databases. Nothing. No missing persons match. No family searching. No open case. Would you be willing to wait for social services? They asked. I nodded. I couldn't walk away. Ellie stayed close, curled up beside me. Her small hand slipped into mine again, holding it like it was the most natural thing in the world. I didn't know who she was or why she chose me, but something about it felt deliberate. I stayed at the store for 3 hours. During that time, I watched 5 different people: officers, a paramedic, a representative from Child Protective Services, try to talk to Ellie. None of them got more than a few words. She didn't cry, didn't ask for anything, didn't panic. She just stayed close to me, like she'd already made a decision. At first, I thought she was just scared or overwhelmed, but after a while, it became clear. She wasn't acting like a lost child. She was acting like one who had found what she'd been looking for. Anytime someone tried to lead her away, her body tensed. Her fingers gripped mine tighter. If I stepped into the hallway to take a call or get water, she'd stare at the door until I returned, and the moment I reappeared, she'd relax. She trusted me completely, and I couldn't understand why. I sat there filled with questions I couldn't answer. Who was she? Where had she come from? Why wasn't anyone looking for her? Why did she call me mommy? The officer said sometimes kids fixate on someone they see as safe when they're under stress. Maybe she saw me at the park and latched on. Maybe she'd been through something traumatic. The police asked if I was comfortable letting CPS take over. They'd arrange for her to stay in a temporary foster home until they could find a relative or guardian. I nodded. I understood. But I didn't feel calm. I felt protective. Every instinct in me screamed not to let her go. Not until I had answers. Not until I knew she'd be okay. The social worker arrived soon after. Her name was Jackie. She had kind eyes, a warm voice. She crouched down and said gently, "Hi there, honey. My name is Jackie. I'm going to take you somewhere safe tonight, okay?" Ellie didn't respond, didn't even look at her. Then, she turned to me and did something I wasn't ready for. She wrapped her arms around me and whispered, "Please don't leave me again." That word, again, knocked the air out of me. I looked at Jackie. "Can I stay with her tonight? Just one night?" Jackie gave me a sympathetic smile. "That's not how it works. There's a process. Paperwork, licensing. She has to be placed with someone cleared for emergency foster care." "I understand," I said. "But she's terrified. Look at her. She won't even look at anyone else." Jackie hesitated, then turned to one of the officers. He stepped aside and made a call. 10 minutes later, they came back with a proposal. I could apply for temporary custody, an emergency kinship placement, if I agreed to an immediate background check, fingerprinting, and an interview. It was rare, but given how Ellie responded to me, they were willing to make an exception. Jackie asked, "Is there any chance you might actually be related to her?" "No," I answered without thinking. I would know. But something twisted in my stomach. I looked down at Ellie. She looked a little like Courtney. Not an exact match, but something in her eyes, her mouth. It wasn't obvious, but now that I was looking, really looking, it was there. I pushed the thought aside. Courtney never had kids. She never talked about wanting them. If she had, I would have known. Wouldn't I? Still, I signed the papers. They scanned my fingerprints, ran my background, explained the next steps. I'd have to appear in court within a week. I'd meet with a family investigator. I'd be responsible for Ellie, keeping her safe, supervised, supported, until the state figured out who she was. It didn't feel real. Later that evening, I opened the passenger door of my car and helped Ellie into the back seat. My hands were trembling as I buckled her in. She looked up with tired eyes and asked, "Do we live far?" I smiled, not knowing what to say. Not too far. She leaned her head against the window and began humming a soft, wordless tune. My throat tightened. Courtney used to hum like that. I didn't sleep much that night. Ellie curled up on the couch under a fleece blanket, her stuffed bunny tucked under her chin. I sat nearby in an armchair, watching her breathe. The house was quiet, dimly lit. It should have felt peaceful. But instead, it felt like I was holding my breath for something I couldn't name. The next morning, I got a call from Detective Harris, one of the officers from the grocery store. He asked if I could come down to the station to answer a few more questions. I packed some snacks, loaded Ellie into the car, and drove over. Harris met us at the front desk and led us to a small room. "You can sit. She can stay with you," he said. Ellie climbed into my lap without hesitation, like she'd done it 100 times. Harris opened a slim manila folder. "We ran the DNA sample," he said. "We didn't expect much. No missing person report, no national match. But something came up we didn't anticipate." My pulse picked up. He continued, "Her DNA was cross-referenced with individuals already in the system. That's routine. Most of the time, it leads nowhere. But this time, we got a hit." He looked me in the eye. "You're not her mother. But there's a strong partial match." I blinked. "Partial?" He nodded. "Enough to indicate a close biological connection. Half-sibling, aunt, possibly a cousin. Based on the genetic markers, aunt is our working assumption." I stared at him. The words didn't land all at once. "Are you saying I'm her aunt? That's what the DNA suggests." I looked down at Ellie. She was gently tracing the shape of my hand with her finger. My heart raced. I had spent years mourning Courtney, grieving, questioning, remembering, but never once had I considered this. Never imagined she might have had a child. Courtney had disappeared off and on for years. She made promises she couldn't keep, checked into rehab, vanished again. The last time I saw her, she looked thin, exhausted, wearing sunglasses indoors, and hugging me like she didn't think she deserved it. She never mentioned a pregnancy. Not once. "Do you know who her parents were?" I asked. Harris flipped through a few documents. "Her birth certificate is missing, but there are hospital records attached to her Social Security application. Mother's name, Courtney Jensen. No father listed." My hand pressed against my chest. She used her real name? Just first and last. No mention of the father. The hospital may have been told she passed away shortly after. It's possible she claimed miscarriage or abortion. But from what we can tell, she gave birth and signed the paperwork herself. I couldn't breathe. My mind reeled. For all those years, I thought I'd lost everything of Courtney. And yet, here she was. Ellie, a child, a piece of my sister still alive. "Where has she been?" I asked, my voice low. Harris sighed. "She was living with a family in Eugene. Friends of your sister, from what we can gather. No official adoption. The man passed away in a car accident last month. His wife tried to care for Ellie but had a stroke. No legal guardianship in place. The system stepped in. Ellie ran. Ran? From what we know, she may have seen a photo of you in that house. She walked several miles from the edge of the park district to where you were, alone." I looked at Ellie. Her eyes were closed, thumb in her mouth, fingers curled in the fabric of my sleeve. I didn't know how she'd found me, but she had. In a world of strangers, she had looked at me and seen something she trusted, a connection, a face that resembled the mother she lost. That afternoon, I began the paperwork to file for formal guardianship. There would be hearings, background checks, home inspections, psychological evaluations. I'd have to prove I could care for her emotionally and legally. I wasn't ready for any of it, but I knew one thing with absolute clarity. She had been lost long enough. She wasn't going anywhere. It's been 6 months since that day in the grocery store. 6 months since a little girl called me mommy and turned my entire world inside out. We live together now, permanently. After weeks of interviews, court dates, home inspections, and psychological assessments, a judge signed the papers. I became Ellie's legal guardian. It felt surreal. The official document was stiff and formal, but when I looked at Ellie and said, "We're family now," she just smiled and nodded like she already knew, like she'd always known. Raising her hasn't been easy. She came with invisible scars I couldn't see at first. Some nights, she wakes up crying but won't say why. She's quiet in crowds. She doesn't like when I leave the room, even if it's just to grab something from the kitchen. She needs stability, routine, a steady presence. And I'm learning to be all of those things, even on the days I feel like I'm failing. I used to think parenting meant being prepared, having the gear, the mindset, the lifestyle. I had none of it. My kitchen had mismatched dishes. My schedule barely worked for one adult, and I didn't even own a nightlight. But I've learned parenting isn't about being ready. It's about showing up every day. It's grilled cheese with the crusts cut off, reading the same story 4 nights in a row, holding her hand at the dentist, teaching her to ride a bike, saying she's safe, saying she's loved, over and over until she finally believes it. When I told my mom everything, she sat silently for a long time. Then she said, "Courtney never told me either. If I'd known, I would have helped." Her voice didn't carry anger, just sadness. Now she visits more than ever. She reads to Ellie, sings her old lullabies, calls her my brave little bug. Watching them together sometimes breaks me in quiet ways. It reminds me of all the pain Courtney carried, all the weight she never shared. I still don't have every answer. I may never know why Courtney kept Ellie a secret, or how exactly Ellie found me that day. But I do know this: grief didn't end when my sister died. It simply changed shape. It became a responsibility, a space I had to make for someone new, someone who didn't just need shelter and food, but a future. Ellie is thriving now. She laughs more. She fills the fridge with crayon suns and purple houses, stick figures, me, her, and our cat, Mocha. She hums while she draws, soft and steady, just like Courtney used to. I never told her that. She just does it. One morning, I asked if she remembered the day we met. She nodded. "You followed me through the store," I said. "Why me?" She shrugged, as if it were obvious. "Because you looked like home." Those 4 words undid me. All the doubt, all the fear, whether I was enough, whether I was just a placeholder, until someone more qualified showed up. It all melted away. Because you looked like home. I think about that all the time now. How many people walk through life feeling unseen? How many children are passed from place to place, never truly finding someone who sees them? Somehow, Ellie found me. Or maybe, in some strange way, we found each other. Every time I pack her lunch, zip her coat, braid her hair, I feel it, that steady heartbeat of purpose. I didn't expect her. I didn't ask for her, but she became mine, and I became hers. Sometimes life gives us exactly what we need long before we're ready. She calls me Mom now, not Mommy, not Natalie, just Mom. The first time she said it, I was pouring milk into her cereal. She said, "Thanks, Mom," so casually I almost dropped the spoon. But I didn't cry. I smiled and said, "You're welcome, sweetheart." Because after all we've been through, Every sleepless night, every question, every moment of fear, the truth is simple. She was never a stranger. She was always family,